Hi everyone. This morning we are going to make some beautiful water lilies. And we're going to use watercolor and salt effects and oil pastels to achieve our effect. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use a little bit of painter's tape to make a border for my picture. So I want it to be pretty even because that's gonna be the white border around the edge of my picture. If you don't have painter's tape, you can use washi tape or anything that pulls off really cleanly and won't damage your paper. So I'm just gonna put a nice little border here around all the edges, and it also holds my paper down, and that way my watercolor doesn't get everywhere. So I'm just gonna keep on going with my border. And one more. And I'm actually gonna have to record this in two parts so that my paper can dry, and then I'll show you the rest afterward. Okay, so this technique we're gonna do is a wet on wet technique. So we're gonna start off with just our paintbrush and water, and we're just gonna wet our paper. And we want it pretty wet because not only will our colors blend really nicely, but also the salt will react better if it's pretty wet. My dog is walking around, so you can hear his little feet clicking on the floor. Sorry about that. Okay, so it's pretty wet, and I'm just gonna take my watercolors. This is a really inexpensive set of watercolors. It's actually a Crayola set, and I like to use it because it can just show you that you can get a really nice effect even without real expensive paints. So I'm gonna wet my brush, and I'm gonna grab a little bit of, let's see, do some blue. And we're just gonna put in a little bit of blue in a couple different places. And we really are gonna want this to blend in when we add some more water and salt. It'll start to blend together. So just put it in a couple different spots. And then I'm gonna grab a really nice green, and I'll put that right up against the blue. Get them to blend on up, maybe down below here, and maybe even up here along the top. Okay, and then I'm gonna go with a bit of orange just to give us kind of a yellowy color, because this is Monet's water lilies. So the nice thing about this picture is that it's supposed to be a reflection of the water lilies and the sunlight and the clouds, so you can really be creative. And I think for me, I'm gonna make it sunset, so I'm gonna add in a little bit of pink to finish out, and you're gonna see this is really gonna be very pretty once we add our salt and then our final effect, drawing our water lilies. Okay, so now while it's all wet, we're gonna come in with our salt. And this is coarse salt or kosher salt. There's a lot of different things they call it. So this is kind of a heavier grain of salt, so that you can get, it's not the real fine salt, it's the thicker salt. But you'll get a nicer effect with that. So I'm gonna let this dry, and then I'll pull the tape off, and I'll come back and see you in a few minutes. Okay, my paper is dried, and I went ahead and wiped off all the salt, and we got really great effect from the salt. It looks really nice. So now I went back in, and you can see as I pull it closer that there's a little bit of pencil markings where I just kind of mapped out where I want my water lilies to go. So now we just take our oil pastels and we're just going to start working on our water lilies. So I'm going to go to the top to start because that way I won't be putting my hand on it once I'm done. And so we're just going to take this dark green and we'll just go in a circle, okay? We're just going to kind of map these guys out. Just nice circles. And ovals. And I'm just kind of very rough. I want a lot of different shape because remember, this is a reflection. So we want it to look a little bit ethereal and magical. Okay, so we're just starting in with some of these water lilies. And we want to start out with a circle for each one because that just gives us our beginning shape. And then as you go down to the bottom, because that's closer to us, you can get a little bit bigger, and if you go farther away, you can get a little smaller. And then we'll take another color green. This one is a lighter green. And I'm just gonna retrace our water lilies again. And I'm doing it very roughly because I don't want them all to have the same exact coloring. I want it to be an idea of depth, not actual depth. Okay, so now we're starting to get somewhere. And now we're gonna go in with a blue, and this is going to bring more reflection and depth into our water lilies and just give them a bit more believability. And just bring in there a little bit of blue. And you could even go in with another kind of blue or another green because we just want more depth. You can see it's starting to look a little bit more deep and colorful. And I'm just going to go in and look for holes and just do a very light fill in some of the ones that have big gaps. And that's going to make some of them look darker and some lighter, which is great. So now we're going to add in some really pretty petals for our water lilies. And the way I'm going to do that is with yellow and pink. So I'm going to start out here, and we're just basically going to kind of just sketch out a rough flower shape on the top, and then we're going to fill it in just a minute. But it's not going to be on every single water lily, right? Because they don't all have flowers. It's picking up a lot of this green. Okay. And then in here, we'll just add in some yellow where we can. And then we'll get some pink in there in just a minute. Okay, and then I'm gonna need pink and possibly maybe a little purple in here, just to make sure I can get all the colors that I want out. So I'm just adding in kind of strokes of like parentheses, because this is impressionist painting. So we're not actually drawing petals. We're just adding in some color and some shapes of flowers because it's just the idea of the flowers. It's not an actual flower. Monet just made ideas of things, and he gave you the impression of it without actually adding in the flowers. And I'm just going to keep going in there until I'm happy with the way that they look. There you go. That looks lovely. And then we can even go in very lightly with our light blue. And we can even do very light ripples in the water. And there are our water lilies, and they look beautiful. So once you're done, you have a lot of depth. You have a beautiful impressionist painting with oil pastels, and it has texture, and it's lovely. So I can't wait to see what you guys do. And as always, you're the artist, so you pick out the colors you want to use, and you pick out, you don't even have to do water lilies. You can do anything you like because you get to pick. So I'd love to see what you guys come up with, and I'll see you in 2 weeks. Have a great day.